Hello, wonderful. This is Sarah, and I'm here with Monique Caissie, and she is a repeat, can I say repeat offender, repeat guest, repeat? She's been asked back on the toxic person proof because we really could not choose which subject we wanted to talk about because she just had two such brilliant subjects and was such an expert in this arena as well. So I know you're going to be excited for this very tough subject, but very important subject, which is how to handle, a family member or child with true mental illness. And how to get them the help they need, how to live well with mental illness, how to manage that situation and communicate well through that. So Monique, so glad to have you back, and thank you for addressing this very tough issue.
Thank you so much for having me again. And yes, it's a tough issue, and it's important year round. I don't know if this will be published before Christmas, but Christmas is certainly a time where we see a lot of explosions, where people are more stressed. And so, and we spoke just briefly before, but I just want to make the distinction. When I think of mental health, I think of mental fitness. And just like we exercise to stay in shape, to ward off illness and disease, mental fitness is something that gets addressed a lot more now in the workplace, so you don't burn out, so it's all the stressors that go around our health. And eventually when we stress ourselves enough, some systems break down. And so just like we might have a breakdown in systems in your pancreas, you get diabetes, lungs, you get asthma or emphysema. If it's your brain, you get mental illnesses and mental conditions that affect us cognitively and our ability to have insight, to see within ourselves. Like we'll say, oh, there's something wrong with that person. We don't see it with ourselves. And we are triggered and we're not seeing that we're being triggered. So mental illness is where all the neurons are floating around in our brain and they're being over triggered to the point where we're in a stress response, fight, flight, freeze, or feign, where we're always in a stress response, and eventually something can break down, and then we can develop mental illnesses. And mental illnesses fall into different categories. The most common being the mood disorders, which are depression and anxiety. Those are the two that everybody knows somebody. If they don't have it themselves, they certainly know someone who suffers a great deal with those. And then there are the more harder to diagnose ones, like schizophrenia, which we've talked about previously in a private conversation. And that's really when the wiring of the brain is so over triggered that they start making stuff up in their brain and they believe it. And I tell the story of one of my clients whose daughter had schizophrenia, and she was going to the hospital, and she was always trying to correct the daughter. She was always trying to tell her, no, there isn't anyone there, because the daughter was speaking to an invisible person because she had these types of hallucinations. And people without insight can't see it within themselves, but they can see it in someone else. So she's sitting there and I said, don't correct her, just visit with your daughter, build the relationship. And so she's sitting there and they're having this chat. It's a three-way chat. There's someone sitting next to the daughter that the mom can't see, and she just pretends like the person's there because that's what I told her to do, or just disregards it. And someone comes out of his room and the daughter stops speaking and says, Mom, look at him. Look, something wrong with him. I think he's crazy. He's talking to someone that is not there. But she totally believed in her hallucination. So that's where insight gets like creamed when mental illness takes over our brain. And we truly believe the things we are seeing and telling ourselves. And that is the extreme case, right? And it is the lowest, like if we're talking about schizophrenia and schizoaffective disorders and stuff, that is the lowest incidences or diagnoses of mental illness, but it also has the highest rate of suicide. It hits kids when between 17 and 25 is when you get your first psychotic break. And now a person can have a psychotic break and not be schizophrenic. I just want to tell everybody that right now. So let's not like panic. Some people may have their first psychotic break in their 70s. So there's like, with mental illness, there's just no hard and fast rules. You take two people, you give them the same medication with the same diagnosis, they'll react differently. So it's really experimental as we go along, trying to find the right recipes for different people who are struggling with a mental illness, whether it be a mood disorder or one of the more challenging ones like that. Mm-hmm.
Well, and I want to bring up the fact I've heard of the brain being like the new frontier. Think how long it took us to discover and culture the entire world, right? There's so many things we still don't know about the ocean. There's so, when you think about the long-term sustainability of mankind and all the things we've developed and how long it took us to build skyscrapers, or how long it took us to figure out a railroad, or how long it took us to build a car. The brain we're still learning, right? I mean, it's a very new study. We weren't studying the brain, 500 years ago. Like we just weren't, or I guess I don't really know that we weren't, but I do know that it's a new endeavor.
Differently, yeah.
Differently, yes. But it is in the length of humanity. Studying the brain is more of a newer concept, a newer thought process, which is unfortunate for us because we don't have all the answers. But I do want to point that out when you say you can give someone two different pills that are the same pill and they have two different reactions, and to kind of, because it's so frustrating if you're trying to get help, but we want to have grace with the people trying to help us.
Absolutely. It is a really challenging thing to offer help to people, because if they don't have insight, or they just have a very stubborn personality, they're not going to want to hear it. And they don't see the benefits of it. They can't, right? They can't see the benefits of getting help. And that's why, of course, I know that we're not talking about personality disorders, which also fall in the DSM, which is, like they call the dark triad, is the narcissist and the sociopath and the psychopath. And the difference between a psychopath and a sociopath is that a psychopath is born and a sociopath is made, basically, but they look the same, right? Mm-hmm. These people who have these disorders, they can feel relieved to know, oh, that's what's going on. But they don't feel they like knowing why they're thinking that way, but they're not going.
Are you talking about psychopaths and sociopaths at this point? Or are you talking about, okay. Yeah. I just want to make that.
Yeah. But they might find it interesting and go, oh, is that why I'm different than others? And that's it. It doesn't impact them more than anything. But if you have any kind of a mental illness where the empathy muscle exists in a person, then they're not going to enjoy having this diagnosis. So they're going to avoid even getting it. So psychopaths don't need to know. When they do know, they kind of go like, oh, okay, that explains it. But they don't need to know. It doesn't change their life, is what I'm trying to say. But if you give the information to someone with a mental illness, they'll go into denial because they don't see it in themselves as easily. That's why you see people who say, oh, I'm feeling better because I'm taking the pills, but they don't make the connection to the pills. They make the connection to, now I'm well, and they stop taking it. Medication compliance is one of the biggest challenges when we're helping someone and we do have a medication that works, but then they don't want the medication, because, to be honest, every medication we give someone has side effects. And so people don't want to keep them, right? And so medication compliance can be a problem when they're feeling super well, not realizing it's the pills that are making them well. They stop just at the best time to continue. And family members have to live with the fallout of that. And how do you get that person to realize when they don't have insight?
How do you get that person to realize if they don't inside, if any of our listeners are
So
thinking
glad
about
you
having those tough
asked.
conversations?
So
Yeah.
glad you asked. So I did do a video, and I'm going to send you the link for that to put in your show notes. And that is, I don't know if you saw it. I think I sent it to you, and it's called the LEAP program by Xavier Amador. And he is a psychiatrist whose brother suffered from schizophrenia. And when he became a psychiatrist, he learned the hard way that the way they did things in terms of assessing and in terms of treating people did not work, because they couldn't get compliance because they didn't build the relationship. So he built a program so that if we have a loved one that has a difficult condition like this, what you do is, it's called the LEAP program, LEAP, and it's L is for listen, and E is for empathize, like empathize with how they must be feeling. And it doesn't mean to say that you feel that. And then it's to find agreement with, for example, if I believe that someone was trying to poison me, and I'm using an exaggeration, but
Sure.
it happens. If I also believe that someone was poisoning me, I'd be scared just like you are right now. Like, it's so you are empathizing, and you are agreeing that their feelings, that you're validating their feelings are real if this is real, but you're not saying it's real, right? Anyway, I hope I can make that distinction. And then the last one is to partner. What if we could make you feel better here? What if there was a way? What if there was someone or something that could turn this around for you? And then we partner with them for their journey. So it's really hard to do. And if someone is aggressive, because, I like to say anger is fear's bodyguard. So when we're dealing with someone who is extremely angry, know that there's something underneath there, and it's fear. And that person who's fighting, they're in their stress response, they're in their fight response. That's why they're fighting. And we need to help them know that they are safe and that we're trying to help them. So it means a lot of listening. It means, well, tell me what's going on with you. What triggered this thought, and all of it. Really, the listening part is so huge, and empathizing and validating. I feel like that too. Oh my gosh, if I was seeing it like that, I totally get it. You're not saying, oh, you're crazy, because that's what people want to do. And I've seen it. And then if you've got somebody who is so fearful of the doctors and of being called crazy or whatever, like the stigma that goes around mental health, because self-stigma is the worst kind of stigma as far as I'm concerned. We're not willing to even acknowledge what's going on. What we have to do is we have to just absolutely work with what we've got. So I have told some people, when they say, well, we decide, listen, this person is a danger to themselves or others, so therefore we must have them picked up by the police and brought for an assessment to the hospital. And that is a very difficult thing to do. I would strongly recommend that anybody who needs to do this does it with support, whether it's from a social worker or a coach with some experience or something like that. It's very important that you get some support, because it's very hard to do emotionally. It eats us up, the guilt.
Sure.
Absolutely. It's just horrible. And I've told some people, well, when you bring someone, even with schizophrenia and full-blown psychosis, they can contain themselves and appear very normal. They get picked up by the police. By the time they get to the hospital, super contained. Doctor comes up and they say, yeah, this is my mom's doing. We were fighting, and you know how they can be. I think it's their menopause. And they contain themselves. So there was this one woman that was the case. She was explaining. I said, great. What would happen if when the doctor went in, you walked in behind him? She said, oh no, he'd get so angry with me. I said, good, do it. And so the doctor got to see him when he no longer could contain himself. So sometimes we do have to trigger them for the doctor to see, because the doctors don't see. They're very good at containing themselves. And I am talking about people who are terribly fearful about being diagnosed, of getting any kinds of treatment. They think that, there's a real paranoid delusion happening. That's what we have to do sometimes.
So what advice, if there's somebody who's thinking they need to make that leap of calling the police and getting the assessment, is there any advice or insight you have into talking them into doing the hard thing, or giving them support in making that decision?
There's different routes to getting someone to the hospital. Hopefully we can say, I'm going to go with you. I'm going to hold your hand. I won't leave your side. I'm going to help you tell your story. If you have a good relationship with them, you can do it. I've brought people to the hospital who trusted me. Sometimes it's easier to trust a complete stranger. I've helped family members by just showing up and saying, why don't I come along too? And it has made a big difference. So maybe bring in someone they respect. It might be grandma, it might be the priest or the rabbi or someone to say, we're really concerned about you. We love you. So they see their community is caring for them as opposed to trying to lock them up. And it's about changing that dialogue to, we're really concerned, we're trying to help you. If someone has been diagnosed and right now they're in a good place, congratulations, first of all. What I would like to suggest you do right now while you're in a good place, sit down with them, talk about how well they're doing right now, and then write up a contract with them discussing these are the symptoms you had, and ask them to agree that if they come back, these symptoms come back, you can take them to the hospital and have that very respectful conversation now while they're well, to get them there. And I'm not going to say it'll work 100% of the time, but it has worked for clients where they say, remember when we had that conversation, we signed this paper, and you pull out the paper and you say, this is what you're doing right now. Let's just go and check. Okay. And we bring them to the hospital. It has to be done with respect and kindness, or they're going to be scared. And if they're scared, they might get violent, or they might, it's always about, like, there's people think, oh my God, he held her captive. And I remember that one woman saying, my brother held me captive. They had to call the police and everything. He was terrified they were there to kill her. He was protecting her in his psychosis. So she said people didn't understand his violence, but his violence wasn't towards her, except that he grabbed her because he was terrified that she would get injured. So we have to look at the underlying thing and not just look superficially at what's going on, and really get to the root of what the relationship is. And of course, I'm talking about people we want to keep in our lives. And no matter what the mental illness, even these very difficult ones, we really have to have solid boundaries, because they need to know, listen, the consequence of you not taking your meds is that you can't live here anymore. Or we have to have those hard conversations with people and let them know the consequences of not taking care of themselves. When they're, obviously we have those conversations when they're well, but we have to let them know. And then when they end up in the hospital, they go, oh, how did I end up here again? And so we can't protect them. We have to give them no reason to stay home, but to go get help. There has to be natural consequences. And so often people, they say, oh, he stole from me, but it's because he's sick. No, he stole from you. So you should actually tell him, do it again, and I'll have you charged, and then have him charged. And, like, you can't do that just because you're sick. And yeah. And anyway, I don't know if that answered your question.
No, it did. And there's such, especially I'm thinking about a parent-child, right?
Okay.
And it's like,
thinking, how old?
Oh, let's say I don't have anyone in mind. I'm just saying, let's say the child's, 20. Okay. So the mother guilt of like,
yes,
oh my gosh,
what did I do wrong? Yeah.
What did I do wrong? In every stressful situation, most of my listeners aren't super happy in the choice of who they had kids with. Most of my listeners are not, right? So there's that guilt. There's, oh my gosh, I was divorced, or I stayed too long, or, all the stress in your life. And then I see this real leaning in. And here's what I want to talk about: the leaning in of, well, now it's my job to protect them from any and all natural consequences, because it's my fault. If they had the perfect childhood with no stress ever, or different genes, or I mean, just things we can't control,
Well, I can certainly speak to that as the mother of someone who isn't on social media, so I'll speak a little bit about it. Her father is definitely a malignant narcissist and alcoholic, and I left him when she was 3. And it was a very challenging thing to co-parent with this person at a time when these things didn't get talked about, because I'm 60, so I'm a little bit older. And she certainly has a lot of health issues, including some mental health issues. And I did beat myself up and wonder what, this is, and I've even, at one point, I even apologized to her for the father I picked for her. And she says, no, Mom, it's okay. Right. Like she didn't take it out on me, but the thing is these kids, she used to tell me that I was the reason that she wasn't seeing her father, and I was the reason. So the mother guilt is they know how to, they know how to push those buttons, right? And so we have to come to the conclusion that at some point we give them everything we can with whatever we've got, just like our own parents did. Right. And they didn't always do great. And we've still managed to survive. And so there's a concept called good enough parenting. And we really have to be okay with how well we did and with what we knew, what we had. And we're not machines. So we have to do some self-forgiveness so we can be better parents. And we're not raising kids at 20. That's an adult. And so I do find, like, I see that in my own relationships. I'm remarried. My husband, I have 2 stepkids, and he's very overprotective and didn't want to, and I was saying, we're not raising children. We're raising people to be adults. So I was the one who said at 13, they get to do their own laundry. At this age, they got chores in this house, but they go to Mom's and they'd say, we don't have to do anything at Mom's. Says, oh, you have more energy to spend here. That's great. Like I didn't even budge. They were trying to make me feel bad, and I gave them more chores. So it's really about understanding the parent-child relationship from a much younger age. It's too late if they're 20. And we have to start setting boundaries when they're in their, as a youngster, obviously, but as a teenager too. We need to have those boundaries in place. We need to have, what are the values of this house? We need to react and establish a consequence if they've done something bad. Even going to their aunt's house and being like a super jerk, if the parent doesn't correct them, they're teaching them how to behave all the time. And if then you start mixing in some mental health issues in there, this kid will not have the tools they need to say, wait a minute, I need to be a responsible person with my health. They've never had any consequences for even like going to the aunt's house or going to the store and not taking everything off the shelf. Like we have to teach them values and boundaries so that when they hit a certain age, and if they do develop a mental illness, they have the values that say, I would not want to hurt people. And so it's really about raising our kids with emotional intelligence and empathy. And we do that by teaching them boundaries and insight and self-reflection and all that. And when they hit 20, if we've done that, then we can get them to the hospital. We can. It's just easier because there's a relationship there. So if they're 20, it's really difficult because they're over 18. When they're over 18, you just can't push them. So if we have been involved and responsible and consequential, and we've taught them the values of respecting themselves and respecting others and all those things, when they hit 20 and we have that kind of a relationship, we can take them to the hospital. If we've missed the boat, then we have to build from a lower place, and it's just a little bit harder. And that's why I really encourage people to go and find a coach who will help them set those boundaries, find a coach who will help them. And in fact, I'm a family peer support worker at a local hospital for the psychiatric, and it's for the caregivers. I help the caregivers navigate the hospital system, navigate talking to medical people and that kind of stuff. And here's something you need to know is they're not, if a patient says, I don't want you talking to my parent, and the person's over 18, the doctor is not allowed to ask you anything. It doesn't stop you from following the doctor down the hall and saying, by the way, did you know that he has a word salad in here? Let me give you a photocopy of what was in his diary last night, and give them the information they need, because they're not going to get it from the person who is saying, I don't want you talking to my loved ones. It's none of their business. It is our business if we're going to take care of them. That same doctor is going to say, well, that's all I can do. Take him home and take care of him. That's where we need our boundaries. Sorry, doc, he's not coming back to the house. Not because we haven't set anything up so that I don't get sick. And that's what we need to start saying to the facilities and the doctors. And what is the system? What's the plan for me to take care of him and not get sick myself, and make them respond to that?
I love that. I love that answer. Yeah, I love asking doctors and stuff, well, what would you do if you were me?
Oh,
like, that's always my favorite question. Yeah.
Mine, it's really similar, is what would you tell your wife to do? Or your sister or your mom? You know, like, because especially if it's a male doctor, I'll say, what would you say? What would you tell them to do? I've gotten amazing information out of people asking that question. You know, someone they love, someone they cherish, you know,
or even their daughter.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, just someone they cherish. What would you do if it's your daughter? Yeah.
Oh, I love that. So what does living well, you talked about living well with someone in your life with mental illness. Can you describe what that looks like? What's the goal to get to?
So living well, we have to realize that, you know, just I say this all the time, is you can't expect a person in a wheelchair to take you tango dancing. So living well is living within your reality and being realistic. That's where boundaries come in. A lot people who don't have boundaries are not being realistic. And so they need to develop a strong, like, know what their values are, know how they should be treated, and start expecting it and start setting boundaries around that. And that's for ourselves, who is taking care of someone with a mental illness. We also have to do it, and even more so in a way, if we do have a mental illness, if we struggle with depression or anxiety or PTSD or any of the conditions that can come from chronic stress and circumstances that have happened to us. So it's absolutely, you want to live well, the first thing you're going to do is set boundaries and know who you are and what your value is.
No, I agree completely. And I think you were the one, I remember in our last interview, you were talking about reading a book on self-esteem, like teaching your child self-esteem. Yes. And then you said, oh, this book says I have to have self-esteem.
Yeah.
I don't want to have self-esteem. I just want her to have better self-esteem. And
that's exactly what happened. I said, this is a ripoff. You mean I have to do the work? What the? I was just gonna like give it to her, right? Yeah, it was really hard. It was a big aha moment for me. And I was in my early 20s. And then I was looking at her dad and going, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Because it didn't match, right? Suddenly, if I have something, he's not allowed to treat me like this.
Yeah. No, I love that example. It stuck out so strongly because, you know, in the conversation about leading by example and leading by boundaries example, or leading by, it's so funny how often people ask, well, like, how can I help my children or my family members with only doing what I'm already doing, or only being good what I'm already good at, and not growing or doing anything that feels uncomfortable, or, you know, I want them to change, or I'm happy to pay somebody to get them to change, but I want to really avoid changing myself. And no one's going to say that out loud.
Oh, they do. They call me and they say, I want you to fix my son or my daughter. And I go, well, I don't understand. And clearly they're like super controlling parents. And they want their kids to be perfect without them doing anything. They just try to get a surrogate to parent their kids. I never take those clients. I say, I can't help your son because he's not the one calling me. He doesn't see a problem. I can't help someone who doesn't see that they have a problem. But since you seem to see that you have a problem, I'd be happy to help you. but they never bite. They're so determined someone will fix their kid for them. Happens all the time.
Which I see in private schools, outsourcing parenting.
Yes.
Oh, churches.
God,
I take my kid to church, so that's like I'm outsourcing parenting, right?
Yeah. Being an active parent takes a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And that's when they're well. But when we start adding a disability, a learning disability, or we start adding any kind of a mood disorder in there, we start adding like I have ADHD, my poor mother, so, we start adding these different layers that people have to navigate around. And if you have a bigger family, it's like this one has special needs, but this one has different special needs, and that one has different special needs. It can be overwhelming. Mm-hmm. So we shouldn't beat ourselves up. We should just try to do it. And just like we won't get it all, and it's okay. We just have to make some decisions, and we just have to forgive ourselves if something does go wrong, because we can't control other people. We can only control ourselves, and we only have so much bandwidth. We can't do it all. We can't be the perfect mom and the perfect worker and the perfect person at church who's on every committee and the perfect, and on every school out. We cannot subdivide ourselves into that many bits and pieces and still have something left over for ourselves and still be living in integrity with who we are. We've given it all away. So we do have to have boundaries, and we do have to know what's important to us.
I love it. Monique, tell people where they can find more out about you.
Sure. You can go to my website. There's 2 ways to find it. And one is whentheydriveyoucrazy.com. And the other one is just my name, but it's spelled funny. So that's why I added the other URL. So it's moniquecaissie.com. And I play a lot on LinkedIn. That's probably my favorite place. So reach out to me there if you'd like. But I do have a Facebook page. And so just get in touch with me. I'd be happy to help if I can.
Awesome. Monique, thank you for helping us today on our journey to becoming toxic person proof. Great insights from today. Thank you.
Thank you.